Student Council President Inakami and Kazuki are heading towards the student council room with students wondering if they are dating. Inakami is determined to amend the school regulations as Kazuki reassures her that they have already prepared the necessary documents. On the other hand, Ken Yuzado is leading an ordinary, run-of-the-mill school life. His days are devoid of excitement, but he hopes for a better future. As Yuzado is about to head home, he notices that his umbrella is missing and wonders if someone has taken it. He then notices another abandoned umbrella, but his conscience stops him from stealing it and he decides to wait for rain to stop. Even after waiting there for some time, the rain doesn't seem to halt. Suddenly, Inakami appears out of nowhere and questions his presence there. She asks if he doesn't have an umbrella, to which he replies positively. Before she could say anything else, Yuzado announces that he's heading home, but Inakami stops him, asserting that she can't allow a student to drench in rain. In the meantime, Kazuki also appears at the spot and offers Yuzado his spare umbrella. This shocks Yuzado as he wasn't expecting Kazuki to remember his name and deciphers that he is actually a nice guy. After formally introducing each other, Inakami offers to walk together, which further shocks as the most popular girl of school offered him to accompany them. As they are walking, Yuzado bluntly comments that he wasn't expecting Kazuki to be a friendly individual since he has always seen him talking to girls. This weird conversation continues for a while as Yuzado deduces that both of them are actually normal high school students. He even questions them regarding their relationship, asking if they are dating. This shocks both of them as Yuzado questions them straightforwardly, unlike others who talk behind their backs. Inakami then asks him regarding his future planning as Yuzado asserts that he hasn't thought about it. She had asked the same question to Kazuki and he questioned her regarding this. Inakami comments that she is curious about other people since she doesn't have any plans for herself, which shocks Yuzado since he wasn't expecting such a bright student to not have any plans. According to Inakami, she doesn't belong in this world. Suddenly, Inakami and Kazuki start hearing bells ringing, but surprisingly, Yuzado cannot hear any of it. These voices keep getting louder as Yuzado curiously approaches them. At that moment, a mysterious portal appears around them, with Yuzado realizing that it is a magic circle and that it might teleport them to another world. Kazuki cannot comprehend what he is talking about, but Inakami seems weirdly excited for someone who's getting isekai'd. After some time, Yuzado wakes up at a mysterious place with soldiers surrounding them. Kazuki lets him in regarding their current situation and seems quite distressed regarding this. Inakami, on the other hand, is extremely excited about all this. The King Lloyd Vulgas Lengler introduces himself as the King of Lengler and explains the reason for summoning them here. According to him, they are summoned here as heroes who will protect them from the tyranny of the Demon Lord, and further explains their circumstances. Despite his explanation, Kazuki refuses to cooperate with them and instructs him to send them back. The king, however, is completely powerless in this regard since they can only summon them. Kazuki is prepared to resort to violence, but Yuzado and Inakami calm him down. Suddenly, the king approaches them and literally begs them to help them. He even promises to figure out some methods to send them back. Hearing this, Inakami questions the reason behind choosing them as hero candidates. Hearing this, the mage explains that the hero summoning ceremony is designed to select accomplished individuals and that they must have heard some bells. Yuzado comments that he didn't hear any bells, which makes them realize that he just got dragged alongside Kazuki and Inakami. After this, Welsi takes them to the room where their magical attributes will be discerned. After preparing everything, she asks Inakami to put her hands on the magic ball. As soon as she puts it on the ball, it starts glowing yellow, which indicates that she possesses thunder magic, which excites Inakami. Kazuki fails to comprehend what she's excited about, but Yuzado immediately understands what's cooking in her mind. Now it is time for Kazuki to decrypt his skills. This time around, the magic ball shines white as Welsi explains that this color depicts light magic that is extremely effective against demons and is typical for a hero. Inakami comments that he can utilize his magic to create magic swords and shoot magic beams, but Kazuki cannot comprehend what she is saying. Yuzado explains that Kazuki doesn't understand what she is blabbing about as Inakami deems him sharp-tongued. Her perfect image has been completely shattered in Kazuki's mind. It is finally time for Yuzado to appraise his magic attribute, and as soon as he places his hand on the ball, it emits emerald color. Yuzado is extremely glad that he possesses some sort of magic, but Welsi seems terrified. Without wasting any time, she takes Yuzado to the king, where she informs him about Kazuki and Inakami's abilities. Upon inquired about Yuzado's magic attribute, she reveals that the crystal turned green when he touched him, which shocks everyone. At this point, Yuzuto himself doesn't know what ability he possesses, but judging from everyone's reaction, it is quite terrifying. Hearing all this, the king immediately instructs Welsi to make arrangements to hide Yuzuto, and as they are conversing, a mysterious individual smashes open the door. All the guards and even the king himself is extremely terrified of that person. Without wasting any time, the woman questions him regarding the hero summoning ceremony and if the heroes have arrived. King Lloyd addresses her as Rose and wonders what she is doing here. Rose explains that she serves the king and cannot take a single day off. She then comes across Yuzuto and asks if he is also a hero, but Lloyd refuses, explaining that Yuzuto is an ordinary teenager who got dragged into all this. Following their formal introduction, Welsi informs her that the heroes are waiting in the crystal room. As Rose is leaving the room, Yuzuto questions the king regarding his magical attribute and what does the color green depicts. Welsi and the king were trying their best to not reveal this information to Rose, but Yuzuto himself dug his grave. Hearing this, Rose announces that she will take Yuzuto with her. Lloyd orders Welsi to take Yuzuto away from Rose as she utilizes her magic to blast him away, but Rose manages to capture him and informs the king that she will turn him into a fine soldier. With this, Yuzuto's future now lies in Rose's hands. Welsi also informs Kazuki and Inakami regarding Yuzuto's circumstances and that Captain Rose has taken him to the rescue team's headquarters outside the capital. She further reveals that Yuzuto actually possesses healing magic, which is extremely rare, and only Rose possesses this magic besides him. Inakami deems this the perfect opportunity, but according to Welsi, Captain Rose's methods are quite unorthodox and definitely not meant for normal humans. In the meantime, Rose takes Yuzuto to the rescue team headquarters where she explains the circumstances and that he possesses the attributes to become a healer. She then introduces him to her team, which is full of weird and terrifying men. The guys introduce themselves, but Rose realizes that they are scaring him, so she thrashes one of them into the wall. Rose explains that even though they are her subordinates, they don't possess healing magic and that there are other two members as well who serve inside the capital. At this point, Yuzuto has realized that Rose is someone he shouldn't mess with. She then allotted him a bed in Tong's room. Yuzuto wakes up from his deep slumber, contemplating if all of this is just a dream. In the meantime, one of his comrades informs him about some visitors, Kazuki and Inakami. They are glad to see that Yuzuto is faring well since they heard he got abducted by some crazy women. Yuzuto apologizes for worrying them as he suddenly remembers that he's supposed to undergo hellish training starting today. Seeing his dismayed expressions, Inakami comments that he seems prepared to face what's coming his way. Yuzuto expresses that despite everything, he wants to do something productive. Hearing this, Inakami wishes him luck, and Kazuki also expresses his gratitude for making him realize something important. He further tells him that he'll do his best in this life as well. With this, both of them leave for the castle. Yuzuto is also glad that Kazuki and Inakami are faring well. In the meantime, Rose appears at the spot as she reminds Yuzuto that this is not a prison and that he's free to meet his friends. She then hands over a journal to him, asserting that he records his training regimen in it. After this, Yuzuto's hellish training officially begins. On the first day, Rose teaches him to feel and concentrate his mana, asserting that he'll learn to control it as well. Yuzuto comments on how easy this hellish training actually is. Following this, Rose hands him a massive book that contains information regarding this world as Yuzuto wonders if he can read this world's language. Rose assures him that he can, but Yuzuto is still not sure and gets shocked at figuring that he actually can understand everything. Rose then educates him regarding the geography of Linger Kingdom and the danger it holds. Yuzuto is then tasked with reading the entire book. Yuzuto is still shocked as to how easy this training is. Yuzuto's training on day 2 comprises of simple running. He has to keep running until his legs tore off. He cannot comprehend how this running will help him with his magic training, but he keeps running nevertheless. Even when he falls down, he gets punished by Rose, who is observing his every move. Yuzuto protests that he cannot run anymore, but Rose heals his legs immediately and instructs him to keep running. The training continues, and on the 4th day, Yuzuto gets the opportunity to run with his comrades. They keep ridiculing him for being too slow, and even though Yuzuto wants to talk back, he keeps his calm. On the 6th day, Yuzuto somehow manages to physically manifest his magic, but the harsh training still continues. Rose asserts that the more Yuzuto hates her, the harder it will get for him. This makes Yuzuto wonder if she has been reading his journal, but realizes that she can't possibly understand Japanese. The hellish training continues with Yuzuto getting his ass beaten for no reason until he manages to heal himself with his own magic. Even though he is making insane progress, Yuzuto still wonders if he'll be of any help for Inokami and Kazuki by just running around. On the 11th day, Rose adds something new to his training regimen, and that's push UPS. At this point, Yuzuto's training regime consists of running in the morning and then push-ups in the evening. As Yuzuto is performing push-ups, Rose tells her the importance of honing his body. She tells him that he needs a strong body to save his comrades on the battlefield. Things are getting slightly easier for Yuzuto, and Rose realizes this as she instructs him to tie some weights to his body. On day 14, as Yuzuto gets back from training, he notices that his lunch is missing, and it turns out one of his comrades has eaten it. This leads to an all-out brawl between them. At that point, Yuzuto realizes that he's been getting brainwashed all this time by Rose and his comrades. A week later, Inokami and Kazuki visit Yuzuto alongside some other people from the castle. Yuzuto's comrade leads him to the forest where Rose is training him. Seeing his intense training session, Inokami and Kazuki get shocked. Yuzuto is actually performing push-ups with Rose and a massive block placed on him. Rose keeps provoking him, but Yuzuto is not the type of guy to give up and even talks back to Rose. Seeing this, she places another massive block on him, but instead of giving up, Yuzuto persists and actually manages to do a push-up. Inokami and Kazuki, on the other hand, cannot comprehend that they're seeing Yuzuto. Seeing all this, the guy accompanying Inokami and Kazuki interferes with Yuzuto's training and grabs Rose by her collar. He questions if she's attempting to break a young man's spirit. In response to this, Rose addresses him as Seegless and instructs him to release her. She further asserts that she has her own training methods and that Yuzuto will ultimately become her right-hand man. This shocks both Seegless and Yuzuto. Rose further asserts that she loves the fact that Yuzuto is persistent and that he hates losing. Hearing their conversation, Yuzuto realizes that Seegless is actually doing more harm than good to his cause. After this, Seegless instructs Inokami and Kazuki to look after Celia as he wants to have a conversation with Rose. With this, Yuzuto leaves with Inokami and Kazuki as they settle down under a tree, where they inform Yuzuto that Seegless is actually the commander of Linger Kingdom's army. They also inform him that the girl accompanying them is the princess of this kingdom, and upon hearing this, Yuzuto apologizes for his ignorance and bows before her. Celia tells him that it's alright and brings out some cookies to share with everyone. As they are savoring the cookies, Kazuki comments on how harsh Yuzuto's training is, but Yuzuto disagrees, urging that he had it easy today. He then questions them regarding their training as Kazuki informs him that Seegless teaches them sword fighting and Welcome teaches them magic, further asserting that both of them are insanely caring and excellent teachers. As they are conversing, Inokami can't hold her back and forces Yuzuto to show his muscles. She even lifts his shirt to see his abs, but Yuzuto somehow manages to calm her down. Seeing all this, Kazuki questions if Yuzuto is having a hard time here, to which he replies positively. Despite all this, Yuzuto tells him that he's no longer scared of Rose, instead he's enjoying all this. This impresses Inokami, as she's glad that Yuzuto has managed to find a place where he belongs. Yuzuto is also pleased that he's doing something to help them, since they'll be fighting as heroes. Hearing this, Inokami urges Yuzuto to save him when she's in a pinch. Yuzuto then reminds him that it's far too late to be acting like a normal girl, and even Celia agrees with him. In the meantime, Tony brings Yuzuto his lunch, which pisses him off, and this leads to yet another brawl between them. Kazuki wonders if he should interfere, but Celia stops him. Seeing all this, Kazuki and the others leave for the castle to continue their training as well. Later that night, as Yuzuto is taking a bath, he notices that his muscles have matured a lot owing to Rose's harsh training. The following morning, Rose informs Yuzuto that they'll be heading out today. On their way to the gate, they come across some soldiers who seem insanely scared of Rose, who impresses Yuzuto. After leaving the town, they reach a forest known as the Darkness of Linger, which is teeming with monsters. Rose then tells Yuzuto that he's not allowed to return until he defeats a Grand Grizzly, and this shocks him. Since Yuzuto has read the entire manual on monsters, he knows how frightening these monsters are. He protests that he can't possibly take on a Grand Grizzly, but Rose insists that he's more than capable now to defeat one, and with this, she hurls him into the forest. After Rose has yeeted Yuzuto into the Forest of Darkness, he is damn sure that he will die. He turns his back to the ground and begins healing himself. He is determined to not die at this place and somehow manages to land unscathed. He realizes that the only way he can return home is by taking on a giant grizzly. Just as Yuzuto is thinking about all this, a giant grizzly appears out of nowhere and starts following him. Yuzuto was not expecting it to be that huge, but he believes that he can outrun since he survived Rose's hellish training. However, much to his surprise, the grizzly manages to keep up with him. Realizing that he has no other option left, Yuzuto strengthens his resolve to take on the grizzly and defeat it here. Suddenly, two blue grizzlies also appear behind the giant grizzly, shattering Yuzuto's resolve. Running away from them, Yuzuto notices a waterfall nearby and rushes towards it. With no other option left, Yuzuto jumps into the water and for the time being, he's safe from the grizzlies. After getting out of the water, he takes off his clothes and leaves them on a branch to dry. He still cannot believe that he encountered a giant grizzly right off the blue. At this point, he just possesses a knife, a canteen, and some ration to survive for a couple of days. He keeps cursing Rose for not even providing him something to light a fire. Yuzuto still hasn't figured out how to defeat the giant grizzly, and with that in mind, he decides to doze off. The following morning, he prepares his equipment and sets off to defeat the grizzly. However, in order to do that, Yuzuto has to learn more about his opponent and its habitat. Exploring the forest, he comes across some massive claw marks and wonders if they belong to the grizzly. At that moment, he hears rustling from the bushes nearby and gets on his toes. Surprisingly, an injured rabbit appears from the bushes. Yuzuto approaches it with caution and ends up healing it with his magic. With this, Yuzuto leaves it behind and proceeds to his mission. Much to his surprise, the rabbit begins following him as Yuzuto attempts to brush it off, but the rabbit seems hella persistent. Yuzuto even tries to outrun it, but the rabbit keeps following him. Surrendering to the rabbit, Yuzuto ends up asking it if it knows something about the grizzly's home, with the rabbit nodding its head. This shocks Yuzuto and he follows the rabbit. Surprisingly, the rabbit takes him to the grizzly's den when the giant grizzly and the two blue grizzlies are sound asleep. After this, Yuzuto gathers some water from a nearby river even though he is unsure if he should drink it or not. In the meantime, the rabbit appears again, contemplating Yuzuto to wonder if something is off with it. Time passes by as Yuzuto gathers more information regarding the grizzlies, cogitating about ways to defeat the giant grizzly. He's even starting to find the blue grizzlies and the rabbit somewhat cute as he realizes that he's actually having more fun than he thought. After getting back to his den, Yuzuto drinks the water he had gathered, and just as he'd suspected, the water gave him an intense stomachache that couldn't be healed with his magic. Seeing his distressed state, the rabbit shows him a pond and assures him that he can drink this water just fine. Suddenly, the rabbit starts trembling in fear, which makes Yuzuto wonder if it sensed a monster nearby. As both of them climb a nearby tree, Yuzuto notices a massive white snake lurking there, which scares the shit out of him as all he could feel was bloodlust from it. 4 days have passed since this event, but Yuzuto still hasn't recovered from this trauma. Despite all this, he keeps observing the grizzlies, and even though he doesn't want to hurt them, he has no other choice if he wants to return back. It starts raining the day Yuzuto had planned to defeat the grizzly, but the rabbit stops him from going. Even though Yuzuto wants to go, he decides to stay behind till the rain stops. Even after the rain stops and Yuzuto is heading towards the grizzly's den, the rabbit attempts to stop him, but Yuzuto is determined this time. Upon reaching there, Yuzuto comes across the dead bodies of Grizzly Papa and Grizzly Mama. This completely shattered Yuzuto as he realizes that Rose will kill him after knowing that someone beat him to the mission. Seeing the claw marks on their bodies, Yuzuto realizes that the white snake must have been behind all this, and it didn't even kill them for food. At that moment, the baby grizzly appears from the debris and attempts to wake up its mother, but all in vain. Seeing the baby cry, Yuzuto decides to take revenge as he sets out to locate the white snake. In the meantime, Inakami and Kazuki went to meet Yuzuto, but his comrades inform them that Yuzuto has been stationed in the forest for a mission. This shocks them as they believe that Rose is going too far. Kazuki is quite worried about Yuzuto, but Inakami calms him down, stating that Yuzuto is someone who will eventually find his way through anything and that he'll be fine. With all of this going on, Yuzuto is strengthening his body to take on the snake and even prepares a weapon for himself. After he's done with the preparation, he asks the rabbit to lead him to the white snake and instructs him to leave after escorting him there. Following the rabbit's lead, Yuzuto eventually comes across the snake only to witness the baby grizzly up against it. Even though Yuzuto is scared to the point that he might shit his pants, he believes that nothing is scarier than Rose and proceeds to ambush the monster. Utilizing the weapon he had prepared, he manages to take out one of its eyes, but the snake is still way too overpowered as it manages to bite Yuzuto's entire arm. However, much to its surprise, Yuzuto keeps healing himself and even pierces the snake's mouth using his knife. Just as he's thinking that he might have a chance at it, the snake's poison starts affecting his body, but at this point, Yuzado knows how to cure poison as he manages to detoxify the poison. With the baby grizzly's help, Yuzado manages to strike the snake with his entire strength, shattering it from the inside. With this, Yuzado has managed to defeat the white snake. Even though he wants to heal the baby grizzly's wound, he has utilized most of his magic to cure the poison. Just as he is thinking all this, the snake gets up, and at this point, Yuzado can't even move a single muscle. Realizing that his life is in imminent danger, he blames all of this on Rose and even curses her. At that moment, Rose appears out of nowhere and absolutely obliterates the snake. This shocks Yuzado as he cannot comprehend how she got here. Rose then introduces him to her pet Kookaroo, the rabbit who had been accompanying Yuzado all this time. She then tells him that even though she didn't want to interfere, the white snake left her with no other choice. She further tells him that it is a monster modified by the Demon King's army and Seagless failed to finish it off during their last invasion. However, she still cannot believe that it managed to take down a giant grizzly, considering that even elite soldiers don't come back unscathed against the grizzly. She also realizes that the baby grizzly has taken a liking to Yuzado when it begins growing at her after hearing their conversation. She then orders the grizzly to carry Yuzado on its back to the capital, and it obeys her. With this, Rose picks up both of them with just one arm as she suddenly remembers what Yuzado was calling her before this. As punishment, she forbids Yuzado to get any sleep tonight and carries them outside the forest. Upon reaching the top of the mountain, Rose informs Yuzado that he has earned the right to stand by her side on the battlefield. According to her, he's someone who can withstand pain, physical prowess, and possesses an indomitable spirit. This is something the other two healers don't possess, and this is why she wants him. She further informs him that the Demon King's army might make their move in the near future. In the meantime, the Demon King questions his third army commander Vergret regarding their preparations to invade the Linger Kingdom. She informs him that their preparations are almost ready and they can invade the kingdom at any time. Now that Yuzado has cleared the test, this is where the real training begins. Rose ascertains Yuzado that he will heal the injured men on the front lines, meaning that he'll be a part of the advance guard. This shocks Yuzado as he questions about the roles of Tong and the other healer. Rose informs him that they have two other healers, but their roles are different from theirs. In the meantime, the Demon King questions Commander Vergret regarding the preparations for their invasion on Linger Kingdom. She informs him that the preparations are almost complete and they can invade the kingdom at any time. Even though the Demon King is not expecting her to fight till the end, he wants her to give it her all, with Vergret asserting that it's a foregone conclusion. The Demon King deems her response rather boring and dismisses her. The Great Demon King is not even confident in his own army. What a loser. On her way, Vergret gets mocked by someone for being nervous in the presence of the Demon King despite being a big shot. In response to this, Vergret tells him to focus on his work instead of teasing her and refers to him as the Monster Doctor. The doctor forbids her to use this weird nickname, stating that he already has a fine name, Rai-Luke. He then offers to show her his work, and upon reaching his laboratory, he introduces her to his finest creation, Demon-Modified Monster Prototype 72, Enoch. Hearing this, Vergret comments that it possesses the same name as the previous one that got lost in their previous invasion. According to the doctor, the previous Enoch got beaten by someone named Seagless and ran off somewhere. Hearing this, Vergret asserts that there's an even greater threat than Seagless in the Linger Kingdom. The doctor immediately realizes that she's talking about the kidnappers, people who carry the wounded outside the battlefield and get them healed. She further comments on their commander Rose, asserting that he's a beast who scurries around the front lines and heals the injured on the spot. She then vows to kill her by her own hands, but this time around, he cannot fight since she is serving as the commander. All they can do is rely on their elite soldier, the immortal dark magic user. In the meantime, Yuzado is finally back home and is glad that he's alive. After waking up, he wakes up the blue grizzly as well and offers him fruits he found in the dining room. The grizzly really loved them, so Yuzado decides to give them a shot as well. As they are enjoying their meal, the rabbit Yuzado met in the forest also appears there. Even though Yuzado hasn't forgiven him for taking advantage of his innocence, he still finds the rabbit hella cute and offers him some fruit as well. Yuzado then addresses the grizzly as Blurn as Rose overhears him. She tells him that she has informed King Lloyd regarding Blurn and that he can stay with them, but it is not for free since he has to pull his own weight. Yuzado doesn't comprehend what she's trying to say, but he understands it when she instructs him to carry Blurn around during his daily training. She tells him to consider this as a real battle simulation where he has to carry around injured soldiers. On his way, Yuzito gets interrupted by Tong and the others who are acting as enemy soldiers to interrupt his way. Yuzito somehow manages to get rid of them, but after some time, he starts feeling tired even though he's been healing himself. Suddenly, Rose appears out of nowhere and explains that the human body gets fatigued by anxiety, fear, and other things as well. She then instructs him to build up his mental fortitude and situational awareness. After this, Yuzito is told to run around the town and the castle's perimeter while carrying Blurn after replenishing his mana. As he is running around the town, the people react the same way as Yuzito was expecting them to, since he is literally carrying a monster on his back. However, after some time, they recognize Yuzito's outfit and things were back to normal. On their way, Blurn recognizes the fruit they had for breakfast and informs Yuzito about them. He stops by the old granny selling them and inquires regarding the fruits. She tells him that these fruits are the speciality of their kingdom and are known as peril. He then questions the old granny regarding the calmness of people even though he is carrying a monster on his back. The granny tells him that the people are calm because they recognize you as part of the rescue squad who keeps running around the town all the time. Yuzito also realizes that these people have gotten used to Tong and the others running around, so it'll take something more to scare them. As Yuzito is about to leave, the granny offers him a fruit as a token of friendship and he accepts. Continuing their training, Yuzito decides to meet Inokami and Kazuki as well since they are heading towards the castle perimeter. On their way, a weird guy recognizes Yuzito and attempts to gain his attention, but fails miserably and eventually collapses to the ground. At that point, Yuzito looks back and rushes towards him to heal him. As Yuzito is healing him, the guy tells him that he just wanted to introduce himself to Yuzito, addressing him as a junior. This shocks Yuzito, which makes the guy wonder if Rose hasn't told him about them. He then formally introduces himself as Orga Fleur, a healer of the rescue team. He informs Yuzito that Rose told them about a new recruitment, but he wasn't expecting him to be summoned alongside the heroes, with Yuzito commenting that he himself forgot about this fact owing to Rose's intense training. Orga is astonished as to how Yuzito can keep up with Rose's training since he and his sister failed to do so. Orga further tells him that he's not good at healing himself, but when the time comes, they aid the captain in healing the injured. Hearing this, Yuzito questions him regarding their roles on the battlefield as Orga tells him that Tong and the others retrieve injured soldiers from the battlefield and they heal them. Yuzito then informs him that he'll be on the front lines alongside Rose, which shocks Orga as he ascertains that the ones on the front lines are most susceptible to death, but with healers on the front lines, they can be saved. He further tells him that Rose is not the type of person to choose someone half-heartedly and that she must have thought about this. Following this, Yuzito decides to take his leave, but before he leaves, Orga advises him to not hate Rose too much. With this, Yuzito leaves and Orga's sister appears at the spot. She scolds him for running away on his own as Orga tells her about someone interesting he met today and that she'll meet him eventually as well. In the meantime, Yuzito reaches the castle where the guard recognizes him as Yuzito from the rescue squad and lets him in. He even allows him to carry Blurn because of Rose, which makes Yuzito wonder that they trust Rose too much. Inside the castle, Yuzito comes across Inokami, who is way beyond excited to see him. As they settle down, Yuzito introduces her to Blurn as Inokami asks if she can pet him and he allows her. Blurn, however, doesn't allow Inokami to touch him even during his sleep. Yuzito attempts to explain that Blurn doesn't like being touched by strangers, but gets shocked to see that Inokami is happy with this as well. After this, Blurn bites her hand, which makes Yuzito wonder if he hates her, but he bit his hand as well. Things got a bit weird. Following this, Yuzito notices bruises on Inokami's hand from all that practice and heals them instantly, which makes her blush. She questions Yuzito if he's here to meet her specifically, as he tells him that he wanted to meet her and Kazuki as well. Inokami informs him that Kazuki is on a mission alongside Siegless and the others. She further tells him that as soon as he returns, it will be her turn. With this, Yuzito leaves, contemplating about how Inokami and Kazuki are doing their best for the upcoming battle. Upon reaching home, he puts Blurn to sleep and gets confronted by Rose, who questions him regarding his training. In response to this, Yuzito tells her that he's getting used to it as Rose tells him to continue. Yuzito then tells Rose that he got freaked out when she told him about the war, but today, he has strengthened his resolve. He announces that he won't kill anyone on the battlefield, but he will save Kazuki, Inokami, and anyone else he can. Hearing all this, Rose further motivates him, stating that the rescue squad prides itself on saving others, and at that moment, Yuzito felt like a proper member of the rescue squad. Even though Yuzuto is worried about his role in all this, he is still determined to help his comrades. Yuzuto questions Rose why he has to accompany Inakami on her training when Kazuki had Seegless with him. Rose tells him that he was supposed to accompany Kazuki as well, but he had just returned from his training in the forest, so she refused. However, this time around, King Lloyd sent another request and she couldn't refuse him. Inakami is also shocked that Yuzuto will accompany them, but the thing that excites her the most is the fact that Blurn is also with them. Yuzuto explains that Blurn doesn't allow anyone else to touch him, so he has to take him along. Inakami then introduces other members that will be accompanying them as Eriku the Knight and Karin the Mage. With this, Rose addresses Inakami and informs her that Yuzuto's healing magic is not omnipotent, it can heal fatal injuries and even detoxify poison, but it cannot bring back the dead, urging her to not take it for granted. With this, Rose leaves as Inakami comments on how strong she is. In the meantime, Kazuki is training to hone his sword skills as the princess interrupts him. She scolds him to training even though he returned yesterday. Kazuki reassures her that he's completely fine and such things won't affect him at all. Hearing this, the princess starts blushing and wishes him luck for his training. On their way, Inakami informs Yuzuto that Kazuki learned some valuable lessons during his training and fought some formidable opponents as well in the darkness of Linger. Upon hearing this, Yuzuto immediately remembers Blurn and his family that got slaughtered by the massive snake, wondering if Blurn misses his family. At that moment, Inakami questions if Blurn is going to wake up soon, to which Yuzuto replies negatively. Seizing the opportunity, Inakami asks Yuzuto to allow her to touch him, but he forbids. He even hits her hand, which makes her wonder if he has turned into a sadist. Suddenly, Blurn wakes up and Yuzuto puts him on the ground, so he can walk on his own. However, his movements are somewhat sloppy, and seeing this, Inakami offers to carry him. Much to Yuzuto's surprise, Blurn hops on her back, but he was way too heavy for Inakami to carry as she succumbs to the ground under Blurn's weight. Yuzuto even had to heal her and scolds her afterwards for getting hurt outside the battlefield. Following this, Karin senses multiple entities ahead and warns all of them to stay wary. Eriku wonders if they are monsters, but it turns out some mercenaries were hiding to ambush them. They threaten Eriku to hand over their valuables, but he refuses. In the meantime, Yuzuto reassures Inakami that these guys are no big deal, but much to his surprise, Inakami is actually excited after seeing them. Just then, the bandits catch a glimpse of Blurn and shit their pants, thinking that Yuzuto and the others have even tamed the blue grizzly. However, just as they realize that Blurn is just a cub, their confidence skyrockets and they even threaten to skin him alive if they listen to them. Hearing this, Inakami activates her lightning magic and takes down one of them. Seeing that Inakami has perfect control over her magic, Yuzuto allows her to go wild and even calls her the human electric eel, which slightly irritates her. Just then, Karin senses some more creatures, and this time around, they are different. Suddenly, fall boars appear from the forest, which startles Eriku since they are not supposed to be present in this part of the forest. Just as one of the boars is about to strike Yuzuto, Blurn gets in the way and saves him, but this is not the case with Inakami, as one of them actually manages to strike her. However, Yuzuto comes in clutch and somehow manages to protect her, but the boar hurls them into the sky and they end up in a river. Yuzuto keeps healing himself and Inakami so they don't face any significant injuries. As they are flowing in the river, Yuzuto notices that it is the same river he came across previously and realizes that there is a waterfall ahead. He instructs Inakami to hold her breath as both of them fall off the waterfall and Yuzuto loses consciousness. Inakami gets him out of the river, and as she is carrying him, Yuzuto wakes up, urging that he's completely fine. This embarrasses Inakami as Yuzuto tells her that he was just taking a breather after she pulled him out of water. He then suggests that they heal the wound on her face first. As he is healing her, Inakami apologizes for dragging him into all this, but Yuzuto reassures her that he's glad that both of them got stranded together. Despite all this, he wasn't expecting to return to this place this quickly. This shocks Inakami as Yuzuto tells her that Captain Rose dumped him into this forest for training and it is teeming with weird monsters far dangerous compared to the fall boars they encountered earlier. Following this, Yuzuto analyzes their circumstances as Inakami suggests that they prioritize getting out of this place, but Yuzuto tells her that it will be dark soon, so they have to spend the night here. Looking for a spot to camp, Yuzuto tells her that he slept on a branch previously, but since Inakami hasn't climbed a tree before, they cannot do that. Seeing her gloomy face, Yuzuto realizes that Inakami must belong to a wealthy family that shelters their daughter from the outside world. Just then, he notices a cave nearby and suggests that they spend the night there. With this, he asks Inakami to change her clothes as she tells him to not sneak a peek, but much to her surprise, Yuzuto wasn't even thinking about this. Following this, they utilize Inakami's lightning magic to catch some fish and even light a fire. Yuzuto also takes off his wet clothes and sits there half naked. Inakami, on the other hand, is sitting with her face to the other side as Yuzuto apologizes for making things awkward. She even sneaks a peek at Yuzuto's muscles and comments that he has even gotten ripped than before. Suddenly, some mysterious monsters appear out of nowhere and Yuzuto recognizes them as venom monkeys. He wants Inakami to not pet them since they are poisonous, but she doesn't listen to him and gets bit, falling unconscious. In the meantime, news has reached Kazuki that Inakami and Yuzuto are missing in the forest. Enraged, he questions the king regarding the search party as the king informs him that a search party is being assembled and will be dispatched tomorrow. Kazuki, however, is way too impatient as he announces that he'll head out to search for them immediately. Rose, however, forbids him, stating that Yuzuto is more than capable to protect himself and if Inakami is with him, she'll be safe as well. With all of this going on, Yuzuto and Inakami are having the time of their life as Yuzuto comments that Inakami's presence has made surviving in the wild a piece of cake. This makes her question if Yuzuto is using her as a tool for camping. Following this, they decide to sleep with Inakami, volunteering to stay awake in the beginning. As Yuzuto is about to sleep, Inakami questions him regarding his life in this world and if he wants to return. She tells him that she doesn't want to return and upon inquired about it she further tells him that the previous world was like a jail for her and she always wanted to leave for somewhere else. The same is the case for Yuzuto as he wants to save the people of this kingdom as a member of the rescue squad. With this, both of them vow to save this kingdom from the Demon King's tyranny. It also feels like Yuzuto is developing a slight crush on Inakami. The following morning, they finally come across Blurren and Eriku who have been looking for them for quite some time now. Eriku is extremely affected by all that traveling and Yuzuto heals him. As they are conversing, Blurren smells something and ends up at the place where his parents were killed. Despite all this, Blurren has strengthened his resolve to move forward and accompany Yuzuto. With this, all of them leave for their home. Yuzuto and Inakami are finally back from their training as the king welcomes them. He is glad that they are back safely and also apologizes to Yuzuto for dragging him into this. In response to this, Yuzuto tells him that he's used to such circumstances which makes them wonder what sort of situations he has gone through. King Lloyd then further questions him regarding his training and with Rose present there, Yuzuto has no other option but to reply positively. This makes him realize that he has been brainwashed by Rose to do exactly what she wants. Following this, the king asks them to leave as he asks Rose and Siegless to stay behind. As they are leaving, Yuzuto seems a bit perturbed as Inakami questions him regarding this. Yuzuto tells her that the minister's face was quite serious when he asked them to stay behind and speculates that it might be something important. He then wonders if they are going to fire them for causing trouble with Inakami reassuring him that it won't be the case. In the meantime, Kazuki and Celia also appear at the spot. Kazuki seems extremely concerned as Celia further tells them that he was prepared to venture out alone to look for them. Hearing this, Inakami deems Kazuki reckless for his actions as Yuzuto mocks her for getting bit by a little monkey, but before he could say anything else, Inakami forcefully shuts him up. After this, Kazuki informs them about everything that happened here including Rose's insane confidence over Yuzuto's abilities. Yuzuto, on the other hand, is shocked to see that Kazuki took all her words at face value, deeming him an innocent and pure soul. Following some more conversation, Yuzuto and Inakami take their leave as Celia comments on how close the three of them are. Kazuki explains that they were friends in their previous world as well and that's why they are quite close. Celia envies their friendship and questions if she can be their friend as well. She further asserts that Inakami calls her by her name, contemplating if Kazuki would do the same. She immediately gets embarrassed, but much to her surprise, Kazuki agrees to this. With all of this going on, King Lloyd informs Rose and Siegless that they interrogated the group of bandits that ambushed Yuzuto and the others. The bandits revealed that they noticed fewer monsters in the plains as they were crossing it and were immediately attacked by a horde of fall boars in the forest. All of this explains that the monsters were afraid of something and were fleeing into the forest. Hearing this, Rose and Siegless immediately realize that the monsters must be afraid of the Demon King's army heading towards their kingdom. King Lloyd then instructs Siegless to convey his message to all commanding officers to be prepared and mobilize their troops instantly. With this, Siegless leaves the room. King Lloyd then assigns a task to Rose as well, urging that even though he refrains from assigning anything to the commander of the rescue squad, he has no other option. Rose, however, was already expecting this and predicts that King Lloyd wants her to survey the army's whereabouts, asserting that she is the fastest in this kingdom. Before she could leave, King Lloyd asks her for another favor. He wants her to return to her post of battalion commander, but Rose bluntly refuses, stating that she bears more guilt than he speculates. Lloyd cannot comprehend the reason behind Rose's self-criticism even though she was the first healer to be appointed as a battalion commander, with Rose explaining that it is not self-loath or anything. This makes Lloyd realize that Rose hasn't forgiven herself for something that happened in the past, and even though it wasn't her fault. Rose further explains that despite the fact that she has accepted the death of her comrades and that they cannot be brought back with healing, the scar she bears on her right eye keeps reminding her of all this. This scar is the sole reason she created the rescue squad. However, besides this, there's another reason as well. Rose wants to create a subordinate who will not die. Hearing this, King Lloyd deems this humanly impossible, but Rose insists that her insane training is for this reason. Their conversation ends with Rose elucidating that Yuzado is the ultimate subordinate she's been looking for all this. His determination, survival instincts, adaptability, and the fact that he always stands up to her makes him even more worthy. With this, Rose heads out to proceed with her mission. At night, Yuzado's comrade informs him about a message Rose had left for him. In this message, she instructs him to deliver some letter to a particular location in the town. In the meantime, the Demon King's army is proceeding towards Linger Kingdom under Commander Vergret. As she is motivating her soldiers to work for the Demon King, Black Knight appears at the spot and mocks her for being too enthusiastic, asserting that it is annoying. In response to this, Vergret reminds him that she's his superior and that he cannot talk to her like this. With nothing else to say, Black Knight urges her to inform him when the bridge is prepared. In the meantime, Hyriluk also appears at the spot, with Vergret questioning his presence there. Hyriluk asserts that he is there for moral support and comments on the progress of the bridge construction. Vergret informs him that the construction is proceeding quite smoothly and should be done in a few hours. At that moment, some random demons inform Vergret regarding an enemy scout from the Linger Kingdom. Despite this, Vergret is unruffled, asserting that they won't be able to convey the message in time. Suddenly, a massive tree trunk appears from the sky and obliterates the bridge they've been constructing. Seeing this, Vergret cannot comprehend what just happened, but upon looking closely, she realizes that Rose is the one behind this. This infuriates her, but by the time she could do anything, Rose was already out of their sights. The following morning, Yuzado is out to deliver the letter Rose asked him to and is wandering around the city. He realizes that people are constantly staring at him, but cannot comprehend the reason behind this. He then overhears some of them gossiping how Yuzado isn't running despite being a member of the rescue squad. He also comes across the old granny he met previously and she offers him some fruits for Blurren, but Yuzado tells her that he will get them on his way back. After some time, he reaches Orga's clinic where he comes across his sister. After formally introducing each other, she tells him about their clinic and informs him that Orga is treating a patient currently. She then forces him to sneak a peek at his work, and Yuzado notices that Orga's healing magic is quite different from his in that its color is quite intense and the flow is also smooth. Now that he has treated the patient, Orga finally meets Yuzado, who hands him over the letter from Rose. Orga's sister questions him regarding the other members of Rescue Squad since they know each other. She also tells him that they failed to keep up with Rose's training, ending up here, and even though it was tough, she feels really bad about it. According to her, Rose put her everything into training her and they were quite pumped about it as well, but as time passed by, they started hating Rose. However, Rose seems a lot happier now, which makes Yuzado wonder if she's happy because she got a new punching bag. Suddenly, a man appears at the clinic and informs them that some people have gotten injured. Hearing this, Orga demands Yuzado to aid him as all of them rush towards the injured. Upon reaching there, Orga instructs Yuzado to heal them immediately, but Yuzado is uncertain about his skills. Realizing this, Orga advises him to calm down and focus on his own power, asserting that he should believe in himself. At that moment, Yuzado gains some more control over his powers and manages to heal the injured rather easily. Following this, they venture back to the clinic and after bidding farewell, Yuzado leaves. Orga then informs his sister regarding the letter from Rose. He tells her that the Demon King's army is approaching them and they have been summoned to war. He further tells him that Yuzado lacks experience on the battlefield, which might prove a bit troublesome, but he believes in Rose's decision. In the meantime, Yuzuto is heading back home, and on his way, he comes across the old granny who hands over a crate of fruit, urging him to take them. Hesitant, Yuzuto takes the fruit with him, but on the way, a mysterious girl stops him, and as soon as he looks into her eyes, he witnesses tragic events of Kazuki and Inakami getting slaughtered by the Dark Knight. Yuzuto cannot comprehend what he just saw and attempts to stop the mysterious girl. He keeps witnessing the same vision in which Kazuki and Inakami are dead. He even inquires the guards regarding that girl, but they haven't seen her around. In the meantime, Rose also appears at the spot and questions his presence there. Seeing Rose, the castle guard scrams away with Yuzuto commenting that he's still scared of Rose and that he understands the reason behind this. Hearing this, Rose grabs him by his face and basically tortures him for no reason. Yuzuto asks Rose regarding her whereabouts as she informs him that she was on a scouting mission. She further tells him that the Demon King's army is on its way and was attempting to cross the border, but she managed to halt their movement for the time being. On their way back to the base, Yuzuto questions Rose regarding that mysterious girl as she immediately remembers her. She further tells him that the girl mysteriously appeared 2 years ago, evading all bandits and kidnappers. This makes Yuzuto question her the reason bandits would be after her. Rose apprises Yuzuto that beastmen are extremely valuable to the bandits and kidnappers. Besides their beauty, some of them possess extremely rare magic. Hearing this, Yuzuto questions if some of them possess the ability to seek into the future. According to Rose, there are rumors of beastmen possessing such rare magic called precognition, but they won't be wandering around in Linger Kingdom and would be well guarded back in the Beastlands. At this point, Rose wonders if Yuzuto came across someone like that and inquires about it. Yuzuto misstates that he read about it in some book and wanted more information. After this, Rose instructs Yuzuto to head back since she has something to report to King Linger. Back at the capital, Rose reports everything she saw at the border and further informs them that she managed to halt their movement for the time being, but they'll continue their invasion soon enough. Hearing this, King Linger decides that they'll inform the soldiers and the citizens of this kingdom regarding these facts tomorrow. He also instructs Siegless to send Kazuki and Inakami to him since he wants to have a conversation with them. On their way to King Linger, Inakami and Kazuki wonder what the commotion is about as they come across Princess Celia. Like before, Kazuki fails to address her as Celia, which disappoints her, but she puts on a tough act. With all of this going on, Yuzuto is still thinking about that strange vision, contemplating what he can do about it. Suddenly, he notices some mysterious lights outside the window and gets scared. Upon peeking outside, he realizes that it was Kazuki, attempting to grab his attention. Following this, both of them engage in some serious conversation regarding the upcoming war. Yuzuto realizes that Kazuki also cannot sleep because he is the great hero, but immediately notices that something is off. Kazuki informs him that King Linger summoned them some time ago and informed them about the war against the demon army, but when he pictured himself fighting against the demons, he got insanely frightened and ran away. He further tells him that back when he went outside the castle for training, he was really scared, and even though he managed to tackle his opponents, he realized how lightly he had been taking all these things. When he imagines that the demon army is approaching them in an attempt to slaughter them, he gets scared and doesn't want to fight them. Despite all this, the people of this kingdom are incredibly kind towards him and are counting on him to save them. Hearing all this, Yuzuto comments on how cool Kazuki actually is. For him, Kazuki was always the type of person who has everything figured out and doesn't get scared. However, after their time together, he has realized that Kazuki has been crushed under the burden of expectations and asserts that he doesn't have to fulfill all of them. Kazuki then questions Yuzuto regarding his true feelings about this world and this war. In response to this, Yuzuto tells him that he has decided to save those fighting in the war against the demon army. Hearing this, Kazuki asserts that he might die, but Yuzuto is determined. He tells him that even though he got dragged into all this, he has experienced a lot of things in this world, but he has met people who accepted him and he wants to protect them, including Kazuki. At that moment, Kazuki suddenly slaps himself, urging that he's so damn lame. He then announces that he will battle alongside Yuzuto and Inakami, and even though he doesn't know if he can fight as a hero, he still wants to help his friends. Hearing this, Yuzuto asserts that he doesn't have to force himself, but Kazuki has made up his mind. Seeing that Kazuki is quite determined, Yuzuto vows to give it his best and together, they will save the Linger Kingdom. Even though he immediately realizes that he said something corny, there is no going back. With this, Kazuki heads back to the castle. As Yuzuto is about to head back, Inakami also appears at the spot and comments on their bromance. Hearing this, Yuzuto urges her to continue this tomorrow, which shocks Inakami because she was expecting a dramatic response. Yuzuto realizes that Inakami also noticed that Kazuki was acting weird and followed him here as Inakami comments that Yuzuto already played her role and there's nothing left for her to do. Despite all this, Yuzuto further tells her that a part of him still doesn't want Kazuki to fight, but there's nothing they can do now. Hearing this, Inakami asks if he wants her to fight as Yuzuto replies negatively. He further tells her that he won't stop her since she's already made her mind to stay in this world. Inakami also agrees with him, and with this, she also heads back to the castle. The following morning, King Lloyd delivers a speech to the entire kingdom, informing them that the demon army has been sighted near the border and that they plan to intercept them in the grasslands. He further assures them that even though the demons have strengthened their troops, they have also made their preparations in the form of Inakami and Kazuki, and the rescue squad. Hearing all this, the soldiers get insanely hyped up and are determined to return victorious. Following this, Kazuki visits Princess Celia to inform her that he is also leaving for war. She wishes him luck as Kazuki expresses his gratitude and addresses her as Celia. This makes her insanely happy, and now our Prince Charming is heading towards the battlefield. In the meantime, Ururu and Orga have also reached the rescue team headquarters, where Ururu meets Blurn and wants to pet him, but being the type of monster he is, Blurn doesn't let her touch him. Even Kukuru doesn't let her touch it, and this makes Ururu really sad. In the meantime, Orga also appears at the spot as Yuzuto lends him a hand to carry some boxes. Later on, Yuzuto gets summoned by Rose in her room, which scares him since he hasn't visited her room even once. Upon reaching her room, Rose questions Yuzuto regarding his role in the battlefield, with Yuzuto asserting that his role is to heal the injured on the front lines. Rose further affirms that they won't be healing the injured on the front lines in the beginning, as Tong and the others will carry them to the back. Rose explains the reason behind this, as there aren't any casualties in the beginning and the front lines are way too chaotic. Rose further instructs him to not heal the wrong people, which makes Yuzuto question the reason behind it as well. According to her, the soldiers who are injured, but can still fight, don't deserve to be healed since he'll just get in their way. Instead, he should focus on healing the ones who are gravely injured. With this, Rose grants Yuzuto his battle uniform and instructs him to put it on. After this, Rose enlightens Yuzuto to not take his life for granted since healers are immortal. She wants him to prioritize his life over others, asserting that she won't believe in any of that self-sacrificing crap. Following some more conversation, Yuzuto leaves the room, determined to save his comrades and win this battle. It seems like the battle is about to begin. Yuzuto even managed to motivate Kazuki to feature in the war. Yuzuto and the others are heading towards the battlefield as Ururu comments that it is taking far too long. Hearing this, Tong affirms that they'll be fighting demons and they can't possibly do that near the castle, and Ururu also agrees with this. Yuzuto then questions Rose regarding the physical appearance of demons, as she informs him that demons are basically demi-humans with unusual horns. She further tells him that they look like humans at first glance, but are far superior in terms of physical prowess and magic. She then asks if he's scared of them, but Yuzuto replies negatively, asserting that he knows someone far scarier. At that point, Rose still cannot believe how far Yuzuto has come, considering that he was just a random guy who got caught in the hero summoning ritual. 5 years ago, when Rose had just become a battalion commander, she and Siegless were summoned by King Linger, who informed them regarding the presence of demons in the darkness of Linger. He further explains that even though they haven't ambushed anyone, it's a matter of time only. He then instructs those below the rank of general to serve as guards. With this, Rose and Siegless leave as Siegless questions her regarding the motive of demons. According to Rose, the demons might be planning an invasion, and considering this possibility, Siegless decides to mobilize his troops. Even though Rose comments that he takes things way too seriously, she herself is planning to do something similar. In the meantime, a chibi girl appears at the spot and addresses Rose as captain. She keeps bothering her until Rose gets angry and smacks her, nearly splitting her head. The girl then questions her regarding what King Linger told them and gets smacked again for eavesdropping. On their way to their base, Rose addresses her as Owl and reminds her that demons are insanely strong and she's underestimating them. Owl asserts that she was just joking, but still gets punished as Rose announces that she will overlook their evening training. Hearing this, Owl attempts to talk her way out, stating that Rose is a battalion commander and must be way too busy for all this. Upon reaching the headquarters, the soldiers address Owl as vice captain, commenting that she's looking pale. At that moment, Rose reveals that they were discussing their training session, which shocks them. All of them immediately thought that Owl must have said something and gang up on her. She attempts to clear the misunderstanding, asserting that she noticed them slacking off way too much and asked the captain to discipline them. This pisses them off even more as they beat her up. Al literally begs Rose to save her, but she bluntly avoids her. That evening, Rose visits King Linger once again, who informs her that the demons have been slaughtering monsters in their forest for some reason. He then instructs her to figure out their motive and use force if needed. Following this, Rose informs her entire squad regarding this mission and instructs them to get ready as they'll leave tomorrow. All of them are slightly concerned since they have to battle literal demons. Seizing the opportunity, Al attempts to motivate them, but gets told off by them as she was the reason behind their intense training the entire week. Once again, all of them gang up against her and beat her up. In the meantime, Rose informs Kukuru that he'll have to stay behind. She tells him that even though his presence would hugely benefit them, the demons might target him and she doesn't want to put him into imminent danger. Following this, Rose announces that she'll be joining them on this mission since it is quite important. This boosts their confidence by 1,000 folds as Rose's presence makes them literally invincible. The following morning, they leave for the darkness of Linger and wander around the entire day. At night, Al informs them that they will search the west side of the forest tomorrow, and for that purpose, they'll have to leave their horses behind. One of them questions that they shouldn't prioritize the areas they can search on horses, but Al deems that a waste of time. Hearing all this, they agree to what Al said since she's the vice captain. Rose then tells them to sleep as she will keep guard. After some time, Rose notices that Al is still awake and confronts her. Al reveals that she couldn't sleep and sits beside Rose. She then questions the reason Rose made her vice captain even though others are far superior in terms of skills and leadership qualities. This makes Rose question if she doesn't believe in her own abilities, as Al asserts that all she does is write reports and file applications. Rose tells her that these are also important responsibilities, and the fact that there haven't been any complaints means that she's doing a fascinating job. Al, however, is still not satisfied with this answer as Rose further reveals that she might even make her the captain one day. Being a battalion commander, she cannot remain the captain of this squad for too long and Al has to take over eventually. This shocks Al as she affirms that she doesn't want her to leave ever. According to her, Rose is the only person who has ever managed to discipline her. Back when Al joined the Knights, she never followed anyone's order until Rose appeared in her life. Everything she tried was useless against Rose, who would force her way through everything. Seeing all this, Al decided that she will never obey a person like Rose and that she will endure her hellish training to prove that she is superior. During that time, Al became insanely motivated as she realized that Rose was the first person who accepted her and didn't cast her away. She further tells her that even though she thought Rose was annoying, everything she did made her happy. She believes that the others also think like this and no one understands Rose like they do. Hearing all this emotional stuff, Rose smacks Al, which makes her wonder what she did wrong. Rose then confirms if Al and her squad really knows her the best, to which she replies positively. She then explains that she didn't make her vice captain on a whim and further affirms that her ability to withstand tough circumstances makes her the ideal candidate. This conversation really boosts Al's confidence and teaches her to appreciate her abilities. With this, Rose instructs her and the others to get back to sleep, contemplating Al to wonder who else she is talking about. At that point, she realizes that their comrades were eavesdropping on their conversation and gets embarrassed. The following morning, they reach the west side of the forest where they come across blood-tinged footprints, which makes it quite clear that the demons are nearby. After some time, they finally come across demons gathering monsters for unknown reasons. At that point, the demons also realize that they have been caught. In the beginning, Rose confronts them alone, mocking them for gathering monsters like they are putting together a circus. The demon, on the other hand, asserts that he also doesn't like this mission, but it will benefit them in the long run, and now that they have crossed paths, he cannot let them leave alive. Rose leaves the command in the hands of Al and ambushes the demon leader. The demon underestimates Rose in the beginning and attacks her with some wind slasher, but much to his surprise, Rose dodges them rather easily and counterattacks. The demon gets quite shocked by Rose's movements, commenting that a normal human cannot possibly move like that. The battle continues with the demon attacking Rose, and her countering his attacks. She even hurls some tree trunks at him, thinking that they might do some damage, but the demon utilizes his magic to guard himself. Just when the demon believes that he has trapped Rose inside his measly attack, she walks her way through it. This makes him realize that she actually possesses healing magic. Respecting her abilities, the demon introduces himself as Nero Argents and Rose also introduces herself. With this, the demon brings out his demon sword to get rid of Rose once and for all, since he considers her an imminent danger to his empire. Up against the demons, Rose's team is holding their own, and with their impressive, they even have the upper hand over them. In the meantime, Rose postulates that Nero Demon's sword must be imbued with some curse and that she cannot afford being struck by it. With that said, she launches Nero back to his men with a single punch and heals her minor wounds. She then provokes Nero to stand up, urging that her punch is not enough to take him down. Nero, on the other hand, endorses that he wasn't expecting this mission to be troublesome as he commends Rose's squad. He further comments that they are the toughest opponents they have faced so far. They know that humans no longer have heroes and used to believe that there aren't any humans with overwhelming abilities, but his encounter with Rose proves otherwise. He further comments that they have become the greatest obstacle in their way, which makes Rose question him, but Nero keeps on blabbing about how their king will rise soon and that he is an absolute being who has promised them victory. With this, Nero unleashes his full strength, and his men start acting strange. They won't budge, with swords piercing their gut, and sacrifice themselves to take down their opponents as well. Rose attempts to stop them, but Nero gets in her way and the demons manage to kill Neruka. The battle proceeds as the demons continue sacrificing themselves, which infuriates Rose, and she loses her composure. Nero seizes this opportunity to take out Rose's eye. She attempts to heal it but fails as Nero reveals that his crimson sword dispels all magic. With all of this going on, her men keep calling for her, but with Nero blocking her way, Rose cannot do anything. She blindly approaches Nero once again, only to get her ankle slashed by Nero's sword. Realizing that she can no longer fight, Nero decides to end her and approaches her to deal the finishing blow. Just when he swings his sword, Al appears out of nowhere and takes the strike instead of Rose. This further infuriates Rose as she looks around to witness all her subordinates dead. She blames all of this on herself as she questions her actions, wondering why Al didn't escape and chose to stay behind. In the end, she concludes that she was weak. Nero, on the other hand, deems Rose at her most vulnerable and decides to end her. He comments on how he will remember the deaths of their subordinates. Hearing this, Rose's blood starts boiling as she grabs his sword and punches him right in the face. She keeps thrashing him around like a mannequin, stating that he does not know shit about her men as she smashes Nero into a tree with his sword. At that moment, a demon girl appears from nowhere as Nero instructs her to stay hidden. Seeing this, Rose cannot comprehend how a demon who sacrificed his own is being saved by someone the same way Al saved her. The demon girl, on the other hand, saves Nero and takes off. Rose wanted to stop them, but noticing that the girl's face resembles Al, she shattered to the ground. Just then, she hears Al, who is still alive, and rushes towards her. She reassures her that she will heal her, with Al commenting that it is impossible. Knowing that she won't survive, Al expresses her gratitude towards Rose for serving as their captain and urges her to stay the same. With this, Al also succumbs to death as Rose keeps shouting all alone in the forest. Following all this, Rose reports everything to King Lloyd and tells him that the King of Demons might awaken and invade Lloyd Kingdom. After ending her report, Rose requests King Lloyd to relieve her of all her duties as a battalion commander and as a knight as well, stating that she does not deserve to be a knight. Rose then leaves the hall without saying anything. On her way back, she comes across some people who recognize her as Captain Rose and introduce themselves as Josh's parents. Hearing this, Rose apologizes for Josh's death, urging that it was her fault. Josh's parents, on the other hand, express their gratitude towards Rose for bringing him back to them. According to them, Rose is the reason their worthless son could do something, and his face brightened up when he joined her squad. With this, Rose heads back to her base where she settles down all alone. After some time, Siegless visits Rose and questions if King Lloyd had also visited her. He was quite shocked by this as Rose also comments that she was surprised by his visit all the way here as Siegless states that King Lloyd is worried about her. He then questions if Lloyd tried to convince her, to which she replies negatively, further stating that he was here for the same reason he is. Looking towards the sky, Rose comments on how dying would not be a bad option. Upon hearing this, Siegless grabs her by her collar as Rose reassures him that she will not do anything like this. After this, Siegless questions her regarding the progress of her healing and why she is not trying to heal her eye. Rose ignores his question, but deep down she believes that this injury is a proof of her sin and to make sure that she does not forget her subordinate's death. Even though Rose does not want to die, she cannot comprehend the purpose of her life. She wonders if she wants to kill Nero or get rid of all demon from this world, but she soon realizes that she needs to calm herself before making any decision. As she settles at the table, she reminisces about the time her comrades were still alive. This makes her question if she was always this weak and what would Owl and the others say if they saw her now. At that point, she daydreams about the owl telling her that she would probably laugh at her. She further tells Rose that nothing in this life remains permanent and they must accept this fact to move forward. She further reminds her that the fact she served as their captain won't change as well. She also reminds her of what she said before dying as the other members also appear there, cheering Rose up. Hearing all this, Rose starts crying as tears roll down her cheeks and decides that she won't stand still any longer. With this, Rose decides that she will formulate an organization that will save people, and for that purpose, she needs at least 5 men, 2 healers, and someone who can stand beside her on the battlefield. Fast forward to the present, Rose tells Yuzuto that she is glad to have found him, which shocks him. She also reminds him of how valuable he is, stating that she cannot replace him with some random healer. She further tells him that he is someone with all the qualities she's been searching for and that he has managed to achieve things that only Rose herself has achieved. With all of this going on, the demons have also managed to complete the bridge. They are confident that they'll succeed this time, as the Dark Knight is also excited about all this. He questions the commander if he can head to the front line as soon as the battle begins, to which she replies positively. Despite his confident demeanor, the commander warns him about the existence of kidnappers. Yuzuto and the others have finally reached their camping site. As Yuzuto wakes up the following morning, he heads outside and comes across Inakami, which makes him question her presence there. She tells him that she is up for some morning walk, further questioning him regarding her outfit. Yuzuto doesn't comprehend what exactly she wants him to say, as she keeps blabbering about how her armor boosts her lightning magic and even enhances her movements. This makes Yuzuto realize that Inakami is one of those gorilla girls who prefer armor over cute stuff. Inakami, however, shuns this comment, stating that she used to cultivate cactuses back home, which further strengthens Yuzuto's belief. Inakami then proposes Yuzuto to become her source of comfort, as Yuzuto fails to comprehend whatever she is spouting. Hearing this, Inakami deems Yuzuto a tsundere as she attempts to seduce him. At that point, Kazuki appears out of nowhere, grabbing Inakami from behind and takes her away. After all this, it is finally time for the war. The humans have schemed to strike the Demon Lord's army with a barrage of magic as soon as they arrive. After this, Inakami and Kazuki will shatter their defenses alongside other knights and carve the way to their general. As they are waiting for the demon army, Inakami encourages Kazuki to not push himself too much. Kazuki immediately counters her encouragement with a question regarding her relationship with Yuzuto, prompting her to spill the tea. Inakami deems him quite perceptive when it comes to such circumstances, as she tells him that Yuzuto is someone who accepted her for who she really is. Just then, they sense that the Demon Lord's army has arrived as the knights prepare themselves to unleash havoc upon them. As soon as they launch their magic, they realize that it was a diversion, as the real army is approaching from another side. With all of this going on, Rose instructs Tong and the others to head out to the front lines and bring anyone who is injured. She further instructs Orga and Ururu to remain stationed there, with Eriku acting as their guard. She, herself, and Yuzuto will head out to the front lines in some time. Just then, Tong brings 2 injured soldiers to the tent, which shocks Yuzuto and Ururu. They immediately proceed to heal the soldiers. The knight Yuzuto is healing informs him about a snake on the battlefield, contemplating him to think if it's the same one he had encountered. In the meantime, the Black Knight is unimpressed by humans, as suddenly, a knight pierces its chest from behind, thinking that he had hit the jackpot. However, much to his surprise, the attack didn't even tickle the Black Knight, as the wound immediately heals and instead damages the knight. Even though he is impressed by his tenacious nature, the Black Knight decides to get rid of him. Just then, a mysterious balloon appears out of nowhere and diverts its attention. Just as he looks back, the knight is already gone, as a weird guy carries him away. This shocks the knight as he remembers the commander's warning about the kidnappers. At that moment, he notices Inumaki's lightning magic, which piques his interest, and he heads towards it. In the meantime, Rose announces that it's about time that they head to the front lines, as she leaves the healing tent in Ururu and Orga's care. On their way, Rose informs Yuzuto regarding the Black Knight. Hearing this, Yuzuto immediately remembers the vision that mysterious girl showed and slows down a bit. Rose also stops and questions Yuzuto if he can kill anyone on the battlefield, to which he replies negatively. Rose deems him an idiot to say this in the face of death. Despite his response, she teaches him a secret technique, and after hearing this, Yuzuto gets a bit relieved. With this, both of them head in opposite directions, saving multiple people on the way. In the meantime, Kazuki and Inakami are carving their way to the enemy general, getting rid of everyone on their way. Kazuki informs Inakami about a huge snake up ahead, and as they are about to move, the Black Knight appears in front of them. Both of them immediately realize that this demon is far superior compared to the one they have fought before. Despite Inakami's warning, some soldiers blindly charge ahead and pierce the knight, but much to their surprise, their attacks have no effect on him. Instead, their attacks get reflected back to them, which shocks all of them. Without thinking, Kazuki casts a projectile towards the Black Knight, but Inakami stops him and pushes him away. The attack still brushes off the demon's shoulder as Kazuki questions Inakami regarding her actions. At that point, Kazuki's attack gets reflected back to him as blood oozes from his shoulder. Seeing this, Inakami realizes that his real magic is reflection and gets praised by the Black Knight. In the meantime, Yuzito is also heading towards them as he suddenly feels throbbing headache. Seizing this opportunity, a demon ambushes him, but he gets saved by a knight he had saved before. Yuzito then inquires the knight regarding Kazuki and Inakami's whereabouts, and hurries towards them. With all of this going on, Inakami and Kazuki are up against the Black Knight, but all their attacks get reflected back. At that point, Inakami notices that the attack on his back wasn't reflected and informs Kazuki about it. Without wasting any time, they ambush the Black Knight once again, and Inakami finally manages to pierce him from behind. She had deduced that the Black Knight cannot reflect attacks he cannot perceive, as Kazuki also ambushes him from front. However, all of them go down the drain as Inakami's attack gets reflected back and the Black Knight penetrates Kazuki's chest. He further reveals that he was playing around with them, and his perception has nothing to do with his ability. With this, Inakami also falls to the ground. Back in the real world, Inakami was always overwhelmed by the respect and expectations people had from her. However, when she got reincarnated into another world alongside Yuzito and Kazuki, she was really happy. She thought that she could finally be true to herself, and the person that accepted her wholeheartedly was Yuzito. Fast forward to the present, just as Inakami collapses to the ground, the demons start celebrating their victory as if they have already won the war, and the battlefield echoes with praise for the Black Knight. The Black Knight then decides to get rid of Inakami and raises his sword. At that moment, Yuzito appears out of nowhere and smacks the living shit out of him. He hurriedly takes both of them to a safe place and heals them. As he is healing them, the Black Knight regains consciousness and triggers an uproar in anguish. It turns out the Black Knight is a woman, and Yuzito's attack has actually managed to damage her. With no other option left, Yuzito picks up Kazuki and Inakami, and takes to his heels. The demons, however, follow them, but Inakami manages to disperse them using her magic. Just as Yuzito thinks that they have gotten far enough, the Black Knight appears out of nowhere and hurls her sword towards them. Inakami then explains the circumstances and reveals everything related to the Black Knight to him. She also tells him that his attacks are damaging the Black Knight and that he might be the key to their victory. Even though Yuzito does not want to fight, he has no other option. He coats his entire body as healing magic and instructs Inakami to stay behind. With this, the real battle begins as Yuzito approaches the Black Knight at full force. Brimming with wrath, the Black Knight launches a fury of attacks towards Yuzito, but much to her surprise, all her attacks got cancelled for some reason. Yuzito, on the other hand, keeps punching the living shit out of her since he believes in gender equality. In the meantime, Kazuki also wakes up and Inakami explains everything to him. For a moment, the Black Knight gets the upper hand and manages to pierce Yuzito's hand, but unfortunately, the attack did not even tickle Yuzito. Kazuki and Inakami cannot comprehend the reason behind Black Knight's ineffectiveness against Yuzito. Kazuki also questions the reason Yuzito has cloaked himself in healing magic, since he is not healing himself or anything. From all this, Inakami postulates that the Black Knight's weakness might be healing magic. In the meantime, Yuzito cloaks his entire hand in healing magic and thrashes the Black Knight a mile away. Inakami further deduces that Yuzito is healing the Black Knight's injuries as he punches her, so there are no wounds, but his attacks still hurt like hell. The Black Knight also cannot comprehend what's happening as she unleashes her full potential and vows to kill Yuzito. As both of them approach each other, their attacks clash, but Yuzito's punch significantly overpowers her and renders her unconscious. The blast from their clash was so massive that even Rose could perceive it from the other side of the battlefield. Now that the Black Knight is unconscious, Yuzito heals the injured knights and gets appreciated for his efforts. Inakami and Kazuki also express their gratitude, asserting that if he hadn't defeated the Black Knight, there would have been far more casualties. Inakami then questions him regarding his finishing move, the healing punch, as Yuzuto gets all embarrassed and tells her that it is just a normal punch cloaked in healing magic. He further tells her that Rose was the one who taught him this move, since he can knock down his opponents with this without leaving any significant injuries. At that moment, a knight reports to Inakami and Kazuki that the white snake is wreaking havoc on the front lines, and they need their assistance. In the meantime, Rose also appears at the spot and grabs Yuzuto from his collar, questioning him regarding everything that happened here. Yuzuto reports everything to Rose, as she comments that she wasn't expecting that he'd be the one to put an end to everything. She then instructs him to head back to the camp since the battle is already in their pocket. Yuzuto bids farewell to Kazuki and Inakami, and heads back to the camp. In the meantime, the report reaches the enemy headquarters regarding Black Knight's ultimate fall. The general cannot comprehend that their best soldier got captured and questions if the heroes defeated her. The demon reports that someone from the rescue squad was the one behind all this, which infuriates her. With no other option left, she instructs Hyriluk to call Belyinok back since they are retreating. They have realized that they can't fight any longer since they don't even have any healers, and the commander alone cannot defend the base alongside fighting on the front lines. Just then, Hyriluk notices that the heroes are already up against Belyinok, and following a long battle, they finally defeat the White Snake. With this, the humans have won this war. Rose informs Yuzuto regarding all this, and after this, they proceed to heal the injured knights. She also asserts that they were able to win this battle owing to Yuzuto's heroics, but he denies this, stating that they would have been saved anyways. Rose, however, persists that Yuzuto was the one who saved them, and without him, the battle wouldn't have ended this quickly and there was a chance that they might have lost. She then expresses her gratitude towards Yuzuto as tears begin rolling down his cheeks. He tells Rose that he's glad that he met her, which makes Rose insanely happy as this reminds her of Owl and the others. With this, Yuzuto loses consciousness as Rose grabs him, urging that he rests. After a while, Yuzuto recounts to Blurn all the details concerning the war and their summons to the castle. King Lloyd even honored him with an award, and even though he got nervous, he was insanely happy because in his previous world, he never did anything worth getting a reward. At that moment, Gamal appears at the spot and informs Yuzuto that King Lloyd has summoned him. He also warns him to be careful while passing through town, which confuses Yuzuto. On his way to the castle, Yuzuto gets surrounded by hordes of people who are expressing their gratitude for saving their kingdom. Upon reaching the castle, he comes across Eriku, who also appreciates his heroics, and after this, Yuzuto heads towards King Lloyd. There, Siegless informs him that they want to help them interrogate the Black Knight he captured, which makes Yuzuto question if she is resisting. Siegless tells him that she has been weirdly cooperative in their interrogation, but she still hasn't divulged any important information like the magic their commanders possess and stuff like that. They further tell him that she wants them to fulfill her demands and she actually wants to meet Yuzuto. On their way to the Black Knight, Inakami also accompanies them and reassures Yuzuto that she'll protect him even though she got her ass beat last time around. Yuzuto then questions Siegless regarding the reason he was able to defeat her. Siegless briefs him that the Black Knight possesses dark magic and ice cancelled out by healing magic for some reason. Yuzuto immediately realizes that his fist cloaked with healing magic had no effect on her and questions Siegless if anyone had treated her, to which he replies negatively. Hearing this, he rushes towards the Black Knight and probes her if she is injured. Yuzuto knows that the Black Knight took all his punches head on, and his punches can even shatter boulders. Inakami, on the other hand, deduces that the Black Knight is actually a masochist as Yuzuto urges her to shut up. Meanwhile, Inakami deduces that the Black Knight might be a masochist, prompting Yuzuto to urge her to remain silent. Yuzuto then asks Siegless to let him in, who hesitates a bit but submits to his will. Yuzuto then approaches the Black Knight and forcefully heals her, asserting that her death will leave a bad taste in his mouth. The demon, on the other hand, comments on how warm it feels and immediately removes her armor. She also asks Yuzuto to keep healing her since no one had treated her like this before, as tears roll down her cheeks. Following all this, Yuzuto is back to training with Rose, who reminds him that the Demon Lord's army will strike again, and they need to prepare for that. Yuzuto also realizes that he needs to power up his healing magic since he cannot heal diseases or anything like that. Rose, however, has other plans as she wants Yuzuto to be able to dodge attacks. She tells him that even healing magic cannot heal wounds procured by curses, and for that purpose, he needs to learn dodging as well. Yuzuto, on the other hand, still cannot comprehend what she is saying as Rose decides to punch him with all her might. She then launches Yuzuto into the air, and just as he lands, she punches the living shit out of him, rendering him unconscious. As Yuzuto regains consciousness, he wonders if all of this was just a measly dream and Rose would never punch her as part of their training. However, much to his surprise, all of that was reality and Rose is prepared to have a go at it again. After some time, Yuzuto heads to the castle to meet Black Knight and tells her everything regarding his hellish training and how Rose is way too cruel. The demon, on the other hand, cannot fathom why Yuzuto is telling her all this and what is he doing there in the first place. In response to this, Yuzuto tells her that he just wanted to check on her and questions her regarding her future endeavors. Hearing all this, the girl gets flattered and urges Yuzuto to get lost. On his way back, Yuzuto comes across Celia and Kazuki. Celia tells him that Kazuki has been improving his magic skills ever since he returned from war and she's keeping an eye on him. Yuzuto immediately realizes that something fishy is cooking between them and wonders if training is supposed to be this chill. Following a long conversation with Kazuki, Yuzuto heads back. In the meantime, Rose visits the Black Knight and offers her two choices. She can either spend the rest of her life rotting in this prison, or she can join the rescue corps under Rose. The demon hesitates, but Rose basically forces her into joining the corps. She also seals her magic with a magical tool and renders her unconscious with a flick to her forehead. With all of this going on, as Yuzuto is running alongside Blurren, Rose appears at the spot and scolds him for training too much. Seeing that Rose is carrying the Black Knight, Yuzuto gets shocked and questions the reason behind this. Rose tells him that she is supposed to discipline her as new recruit of the rescue squad. At that point, the Black Knight also wakes up and recognizes Yuzuto, who offers her condolences. Later that night, Yuzuto reports to Rose that she calmed down after taking a bath and is currently sleeping in her room. Rose then informs Yuzuto regarding a meeting she had with King Lloyd. She tells him that King Lloyd wants to send envoys to other countries to seek aid from them and Yuzuto is also one of these envoys alongside Kazuki and Inokami. This shocks Yuzuto as Rose further tells him that King Lloyd trusts him and believes that he'll be able to accomplish this mission. The following day, as Yuzuto is hanging out in the market, he comes across Inokami and as they are conversing, he notices the mysterious girl who showed him the vision and rushes towards her. Yuzuto immediately grabs her, prompting her to explain everything. The girl, on the other hand, tells him that she's been waiting for him, further asserting that it's time that he pays back and save her mother. Yuzuto doesn't comprehend what she is saying and questions her regarding this. The girl introduces herself as Amako and suggests that they find a quiet place to talk about. Inokami, on the other hand, is weirdly excited about all this. In the meantime, the Black Knight is training alongside other members of the rescue squad. She even gets smacked by Rose for slacking off. In the meantime, Yuzuto takes Amako to their base since all his comrades are out training. Yuzuto then questions her the reason behind showing him the mysterious vision as Amako asserts that if she hadn't showed him the vision, this kingdom would have been destroyed. Hearing this, Yuzuto immediately realizes that Amako can see the future, which she also ascertains. She further tells him that she had been looking for a healer after she left the Beastland and now that she had found Yuzuto, she couldn't afford losing him. The reason Amako traveled so far is to save her mother since beasts cannot use healing magic. This makes Yuzuto question why she chose Yuzuto instead of Orga and Aruru, as Amako clarifies that both of them cannot fight and could probably die before reaching the Beastlands. After all this, Amako urges Yuzuto to travel to the Beastlands and save her mother. Inokami, however, asserts that Yuzuto is way too important for this kingdom and it won't be easy for him to leave like that. Yuzuto, on the other hand, gives it some thought and comes up with a solution. He reckons that they can travel to the Beastlands during their mission as escorts. With this, he decides to talk it out with Captain Rose first. Yuzuto explains everything to Rose, who refuses to believe that Amako is a precognitive princess since such beastmen are extremely important and might even spark a conflict. Despite all this, Rose asserts that Yuzuto's wish to travel to the Beastlands might be granted because of this peculiar fact and instructs him to wait. After this, Yuzuto tells Amako everything as she appreciates her gratitude and leaves. Later that night, Yuzuto encourages the Black Knight, who is facing some difficulty in adjusting to this new environment. He even gifts her a diary and advises her to journal her training in it. The following day, her training proceeds as usual alongside other members and sometimes Yuzuto as well. One day, she notices some strange noises coming from the forest and decides to sneak a peek. Much to her surprise, it was Yuzuto's training session with Rose. She gets shocked to see Yuzuto getting smacked around like it is nothing and deems both of them inhuman. You cannot blame her as well. The training, on the other hand, seems to proceed smoothly as Yuzito attempts to dodge Rose's attacks and he manages to dodge one, which makes her insanely overjoyed. Even Rose appreciates her, and with this, his special training regime is over. Later on, as Yuzito and the demon are resting under a tree, Yuzito seeks her name even though it's a bit late. The girl hesitatingly introduces herself as Felm, but Yuzito completely ignores her and diverts his attention towards Blurren. This infuriates her and she ends up getting more exhausted than usual, and even skips dinner. Felm wakes up at night to scavenge something to eat and accidentally comes across Yuzito and Rose, who are having a secret conversation regarding Yuzito's mission. The following morning, Felm sneaks out from the base without anyone knowing. During the day, Yuzito takes Amako to the castle where they meet King Lloyd. For the first time, King Lloyd gets up from his throne and expresses his gratitude towards Amako for saving their kingdom. He then briefs Yuzito regarding his mission and had customized it so that they end up at the Beastlands in the end, which makes them insanely happy. After this, Welsi lets them in on further details, including the fact that he'll be visiting 4 countries including Lukist, Samariarl, Myalark, and Beastlands. She further tells him that Kazuki and Inakami will accompany him to Lukabist. Yuzito also decides to go with Eriku as their knight. In the meantime, Felm gets caught by Rose, who deduces that she wasn't attempting to escape and reveal their plan to the demon army. Rose questions if she was worried about Yuzito, but Felm immediately dodges this question. Later on, Yuzito bids Felm farewell and finally addresses her by her real name, which embarrasses her. Yuzito also meets Rose, who gives him some valuable advice regarding this journey. She tells him that healing magic is usually looked down upon, and if he encounters someone like that, make sure to beat the shit out of him. She further tells him that she's expecting great things from him, which makes Yuzito insanely happy as he accepts Rose as his mentor, whom he truly respects. Following this, Yuzito and the others bid farewell to their loved ones and leave for a journey that might change them forever. In the meantime, Rose takes Felm to a spot from where she can witness Yuzito and the others leaving the kingdom.